Hi Gaurav, thank you so much for sending in your work. We'll be very happy to give you a feedback on this. So, as we can see, you have created a website for a platform called Quickmart. I believe this is a fictional thing, not really sure. So, just by looking at the whole thing, it seems like this is like a quick commerce platform, and that got validated when we saw the competitive analysis, which is between Blinkit, Instamart, Big Basket, and then there is Quickmart over here. So we have an idea what this is all about. So the feedback here would be in both directions. One is the process that you have followed for the entire website, and second thing is the way you have presented the portfolio. So we'll be giving you feedback on both of it. So starting with the entire process, so as we can see that you have detailed out the sections pretty clearly. Everything looks pretty neat, which is really great. And since this is something to do with quick commerce, you've used green over here. That really works. It's something which is fresh. It's a nice green color, so it really works. So your sections are divided pretty good. So you have a hero section, project overview, the timeline, design process, and then you get into the deep dive into the entire UX UI thing, which is research, defining it, and then you've created personas, all of it. You have created the user flow, how might be questions, so all of it. So standard basically with anybody who is making a portfolio would, and if they're doing a UX UI, it's all of it. So everything is over here. One thing I wanted to point out is you've written that this is a website, but what essentially you have created actually is a platform. There is a difference between a website and a platform. A website is something which is more like a hoarding wherein you want to market something. Platform is when it gives you a more detailed experience where there are flows from point A to point B to achieve something. So it is a lot more complex. So a little unsure whether this is the right word to use. Maybe you can make research on this, and instead of calling it a website, you could have a platform. Because the expectation when you read website is very different from the platform flows. So that was one thing. Second thing I wanted to point out with regards to the way you have presented everything, although you have all the sections, everything is, you might want to reconsider the way the font size you've used over here and the amount of information, both. So it is pretty evident that you've gone through all the steps over here. But is it necessary to show all the steps in the way you have done? That is one thing you can ask. And the reason I say is that because here it seems like you want the person that you're sending your portfolio to actually read everything. But it is a lot to read. That is one. And second, the size of the fonts is really tiny. So it's very hard to actually read all of it. And whenever you're submitting a portfolio, people generally don't read so much. So maybe you can try finding a better way to represent this. So you could think about that. For example, this. You have a survey analysis. Now it really shows that you've done a lot of work, and that is actually important to show as well. But do you need to dedicate 1, 2, 3, 4 slides to it? What you could actually do is highlight some parts of it, or maybe create like a video sort of a thing which explains that you've done the survey, you've done this. And more importantly, which actually is important all across your sections, is that once you have done the process, what is it that you got out of it? So it is just not essential to show that you know the process and that you've done it, but it would actually matter that once you have gone through the process, what are the insights that you get from it, which help basically build whatever you're building. That is something that would really help you stand apart from anybody who are your peers, because everybody is going to do the same thing. But what will help you is that, yes, I know the process and this is the insight. So using this insight, we went to the next phase. I can also give you an example over here of what I'm talking about. So for competitor analysis, yes, you have done over here that how Quickmart has all these things, and even Blinkit and Instamart, Big Basket don't. But there might be a reason why these people don't have this and your platform does. For example, you have option to log in with email. Now, if this is something which is a quick commerce, you need to understand your end users are basically going to use their phones to order something, because Blinkit, Instamart, these are all phone-driven platforms, and it is also essential because that is what the users always have in their hand. They might not go to their website or basically go to the desktop or iPad to order something. Phones are always better. So if they're going to use a phone, what is the point of logging in with email? Because your main point of contact would be phone numbers. The delivery person is going to call you, or if you want to talk to the customer, it's going to be a phone number. So the phone number becomes the most important, which is why Blinkit and Instamart might not have email as a mandatory thing. They might send it to you like bills and everything later on, but that is not something which is essential for the user to check all the time. Which is why, in order for them to log in easily, they use the phone number and not the email. So this is a very strong reason why they don't have. But if you feel that this is something which is important and elevates your platform with something that these guys are not doing, that is something that needs to be highlighted over here. That yes, Quickmart has all of these things, which is what makes it stand out from these platforms. Just having tick marks might not help. You might actually have to explain the reasons here. So this is what I mean when I say that while you showcase all the processes that you have, what is it that comes out of the process is also important to show, and that's what can help you stand out. One other thing I wanted to tell you about was the user journey map. So you have created that, but one of the things that you have missed out over here is a graph. So generally there is a graph that comes in with a user journey map, and this is something for you to look up yourself, that why do you think it is important. You can always ask us again, but I would like you to go check it out, that you have the smiley icons and everything here, but why do you think a graph helps? So that is something that you could research, but what I can tell you is that it is important to have it over here, which is missing. With respect to other things, like I mentioned, you've shown all the processes, but how does it help? Like you have about 11 how might we questions over here, but in a product you can't start solving everything at once. So what is that you have chosen over here which goes to the next phase? So that is also important for you to showcase. Now, as I'm going through the entire portfolio, like I mentioned, the amount of information and the choice of the size of things that you've kept is very hard to consume and read. Like here you've chosen, like you've represented that this was your ideation mood board. Now even if I zoom in, there is so much here, I just can't make out what is, even if I zoom in, that what is it about these things that have inspired you. What actually I can see is that this screen and this screen are same. So is it necessary that it needs to be here? If you're showcasing that this is your mood board, then it also needs to showcase why is this inspiring you to do, pick up a few things. Is it because it's green that has inspired you to take this color? Is it the way things are put over here? The thumbnails is what you're going to be using, which is why this is important. So those things are important to highlight as well. Coming to the wireframe, this is where your UX ability actually comes into the picture. So if you know, there is something called cognitive load, which is an important concept in UX. So if you see all of this, there are about, I think, 18 thumbnails under one category. So there is 1, 2, 3 categories already. So there are 50, 60 items over here. Now, would you want the user to be bombarded with 50, 60 items and on the same page? Is that the purpose of the platform, or would you want to further categorize this? So just by looking at this, somebody can actually tell whether you've used different principles of UX or not. At this moment, it seems like it is a lot, and if it is a lot, what is the reason? No idea. So these are, even wireframes can tell a lot of things, and this is something I can just pick up just by looking at this. So maybe something you could, further look into, just to elevate your capabilities and tell anybody who's basically showcase anybody who's going through your portfolio that even with wireframes, you're able to communicate the entire usability aspects of the platform. Similarly for design system, like you've placed it over here, but can't read, it's pixelated. So even if you want to showcase this, you can't understand the reason, and that's a big no-no, I feel. So quality over quantity is something that you could look at. Even the UX output, maybe a prototype over here would be better than just showcasing things that people can't really see. So yeah, this is all in all the feedback. There are inconsistencies over here which I can highlight. For example, you have your green seems to be the primary color, but there are so many variations of green color that you've used for the cards, for the title, even here this title is different than this color. So somebody with a very keen observation will be able to immediately point these things out. Like for example, this green is so different than here. Even small little things like this, like it is obvious that this is a design process, but the way you've cropped this looks like an A. So you might want to avoid things like this. Lastly, about the color contrast, if you see over here, somebody can read this better than this. So you might want to know why is that. One of the hints is, like I already mentioned, is color contrast over here. So just check what that is. But all I can tell you is that this part is harder to read than this part, and you would not want something like that to happen. But this is a good representation of how you worked. Instead of having it bullet points, a slide like this can really break the monotony of how you have presented. So in all, really good effort. You can definitely elevate this, and hope our insights help you. There is this last one thing about the home page. Now here the home page shows that this is a laptop and then you have two iPad screens. Both the iPad screens have the same picture, so it doesn't really convey much over here. Instead, what you could do is, if this is something people are going to use on the phone, you could actually have a phone over here and then show that this platform is compatible in all three things, instead of having two very similar or just the same things behind. So small little things can really help. Hope this feedback helps you, and do keep sending in your work. Thank you.
Alright, that's a wrap for today's portfolio review. By the way, if you're sitting there thinking, maybe my work needs this too, then drop it in the Evolve community, because that's literally where we find these works. And if you are liking this kind of honest feedback, then you already know what to do. Keep hanging out with us here, because this is not the last glow up session.